Hey everybody, it's Julia Kavanaugh and
I'm Nancy Ham.
welcome to Postpartum Perspectives, the place to come to hear all things newborn care and postpartum related.
We hope you enjoy the following podcast.
Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. This time, we are going to be delving into the world of surrogacy, but with a bit of a different angle.
Okay.
And we are going to be looking at the role of surrogate doulas.
That's going to be interesting. I think a lot of people don't know a lot about.
Yeah, it's a really specialized area.
Yeah.
And, I think that surrogacy is obviously a really physically and emotionally demanding thing for a person to do.
Yeah. And it's really fascinating how this particular
Yeah.
area of, doula support has sort of,
Right.
it's kind of evolved and come into its own as people have recognized that
Right.
surrogates have this very particular set of needs that needs attending to throughout the whole journey,
Yeah.
not just, during labor and delivery.
Right. And so where do they, where does a surrogate doula even begin to offer support? How do they start?
You can think about them in a lot of ways as kind of emotional guides and practical assistants and professional connectors all rolled into one.
Okay.
But essentially what it all boils down to is just making this surrogacy experience as positive and as supported as possible for the surrogate.
Okay, so there's these three key areas we're going to kind of unpack, I think. Yeah. But first, can we just delve into emotional support? What kind of emotional support does a surrogate doula provide?
Well, they're really trained to be incredible listeners and offer, non-judgmental support. And, surrogacy just brings up such a roller coaster of emotions that having that person that you can really talk to who really understands the nuances of what's going on can make a huge difference.
Yeah, it's not just the regular pregnancy stuff. It's a whole
it's a whole other thing. And then, you have to think about that. We always talk about how there are risks with any pregnancy and things like miscarriage or stillbirth.
Yeah.
Thankfully not the norm.
Of course.
But they are,
possibilities.
Possibilities. And, a surrogate doula is really equipped to help navigate those really difficult experiences with, compassion and sensitivity and, helping to process that grief and find healthy ways to, cope and
it's not all sunshine and rainbows.
Ooh, no.
So having that support during the challenges is just as important.
Yeah.
Okay, so beyond that emotional support, what practical help does a surrogate doula?
Think about all the things that become more challenging when you're pregnant and in postpartum recovery.
Yeah.
So they can help with those everyday tasks.
Yeah.
To ease the burden on the surrogate so they can really, focus on their well-being.
So we're talking like meal prep, running errands.
Exactly.
All that stuff.
Yeah, but also, providing like really hands-on support with physical recovery after the birth.
Okay.
And this is really where, their expertise kind of shines.
Okay.
Whether the birth is vaginal or a C-section.
Right.
They're there to help them navigate that.
Okay. Now, I know a C-section is major surgery.
Yeah.
What kind of challenges do surrogates face specifically with?
It's interesting because, it's a C-section's like any other C-section.
Right.
But, you're talking about cutting through 7 layers of tissue.
Yeah.
So recovery can be
7 layers. That's a lot.
It's a lot. To recover from.
And so, pain at the incision site.
Right.
Limited mobility. Longer healing time.
Sure. Compared to a vaginal birth.
Right. Okay. So what can a doula do to ease that process?
Well, they can guide them on pain management techniques.
Okay.
They might suggest something like a warm rice sock for heat therapy.
Okay.
Which hazel pads to kind of soothe the incision.
Okay.
Even things like herbal teas, like catnip.
Catnip.
Can help to ease muscle spasms.
I usually think of that for cats.
I know, me too.
Yeah.
But it's a lesser known use, but it can be effective. So
they really are like a walking encyclopedia of
kinda.
Yeah. Of like recovery tips and tricks.
I often have a wealth of knowledge about both, conventional and holistic approaches to postpartum care.
Okay. So that's amazing.
Yeah.
So they're there to help address the the physical.
Yeah, all the other physical and emotional changes that come, with the postpartum period.
Right, because even though they're not
even though they're not bringing the baby home,
their body still...
Right, their body is still gone through a pregnancy and a hormonal, shift.
Yeah.
That can impact everything from hair and skin to mood and energy levels.
So we're talking like baby blues and stuff.
Exactly. Those feelings of sadness,
okay,
anxiety, fatigue,
right,
all very common.
even for surrogates.
Okay. Yeah. And the doula can really provide reassurance, offer some coping strategies, and importantly, help them distinguish between sort of the normal baby blues and something more serious like postpartum depression, which might require,
professional help. Okay.
Yeah.
And how do they...
Well, they're trained.
Kind of approach that delicate topic.
Yeah, they're trained to recognize the signs and symptoms of postpartum depression.
Okay.
They use tools like the Edinburgh Postnatal Depression Scale. And if they suspect something more serious, they can gently encourage the surrogate to seek, help from a therapist or counselor.
So they're not just like offering emotional support. They're also acting as an advocate for them to make sure that they get the right professional care needed.
And then there's another physical aspect we haven't touched on yet.
Okay.
Lactation.
Right.
Surrogates who aren't breastfeeding will still experience engorgement.
Right. Which can be...
Yeah, and engorgement is...
pretty uncomfortable.
Yeah, when the breasts just become overly full of milk.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, it can be really painful. And so the doula can, guide them on techniques to suppress lactation.
Right.
Things like wearing a tight-fitting bra.
Okay.
Applying cold compresses.
Okay.
Avoiding breast stimulation.
It's amazing how much physical support is needed, even though they're not actually parenting the baby.
And we've really only just scratched the surface.
Okay.
The emotional and psychological aspects are just as crucial and often even more complex.
Yeah. So let's dive into those next.
Yeah. Let's explore that side of the doula's role.
Yeah. So we talked about all the incredible practical support that surrogate doulas provide.
Yeah.
But what about the emotional and psychological side of things?
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, it seems like that would be a huge...
It really is. I think, the emotional landscape of surrogacy is just so complex. And it's something that I think a lot of people don't fully grasp, because you've got to remember that the surrogate's body has gone through, a pregnancy.
Right.
It's been through this profound physical and hormonal experience.
Right.
Even though they're not going to be the one parenting the baby.
Right. And those hormonal shifts are no joke.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's intense.
I remember all my friends talking about the baby blues after they gave birth.
Yeah.
Does that happen with surrogates too, even though they're not bringing the baby home?
Yeah, those hormonal changes can significantly impact their mental health.
Right.
And, the baby blues is that mix of sadness and anxiety and fatigue. It's very common.
Right.
But here's the thing. The same hormones that kind of contribute to those feelings, particularly oxytocin, also play a role in, bonding and attachment.
So even though they know intellectually that the baby isn't theirs, they might still feel a very strong connection.
Absolutely. And that can create, a really complicated emotional experience for the surrogate.
Yeah.
It's like this mix of joy for the intended parents and this sense of accomplishment for, having helped to create this family.
Yeah.
But also potential sadness and a sense of loss.
Right.
When saying goodbye to the baby.
Yeah. So that's a lot to process.
It's a lot.
So how does a doula help them kind of navigate these?
Well, first and foremost, they just provide that safe and non-judgmental space to just talk about anything and everything.
Yeah.
Active listening is like a cornerstone of their training. It's really about validating the surrogate's feelings.
Yeah.
Letting her know that whatever she's experiencing is normal and understandable.
So it's like having a dedicated sounding board for all of them.
Exactly. Someone who really gets it.
Yeah.
And then beyond just listening, they're also equipped to offer coping strategies and, practical tips like mindfulness exercises, guided meditations, even simple things like encouraging proper nutrition and gentle exercise can really help to kind of restore a sense of balance and well-being.
Now, you mentioned postpartum depression earlier, and it seems like these hormonal shifts we talked about would make surrogates susceptible to that as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
How does a doula help in those?
Well, they're trained to recognize those signs and symptoms.
Yeah, okay.
Which can be different from
Right.
the baby blues.
Right.
We're talking about, persistent feelings of sadness or hopelessness, anxiety changes in appetite or sleep.
Okay.
Things that really last beyond.
So they're looking for those red flags.
Yeah, those indicators that something more serious might be going
Right.
on. And if they see those signs, they can, gently encourage the surrogate to seek professional help. Maybe suggest a therapist who specializes in postpartum mental health, or even, those who focus specifically on surrogacy.
Right.
Because they really understand those unique challenges.
So they're really acting as like emotional guardians, making sure that they get...
Keeping an eye out for their well-being.
Yeah. And making sure they get the appropriate support.
Okay.
And then, that they can also help the surrogate to kind of navigate that, the specific emotional challenges of saying goodbye to the baby.
Right, because they've carried and nurtured this baby for 9 months.
Exactly.
So saying goodbye must be
It's a very
difficult.
real loss, and it's important to acknowledge and process those feelings.
Yeah.
The doula might suggest things like journaling, talking with loved ones, creating a meaningful ritual.
Right.
To symbolize letting go. It's really about finding those healthy ways to cope with that grief.
Yeah. Are there other things that can help surrogates during that transition?
If it's been agreed upon beforehand, maintaining contact with the intended parents can be a source of comfort. For some surrogates, seeing the baby thrive and knowing that they played a role in that happiness can be incredibly rewarding. So it's kind of like finding closure through that continued connection.
Yeah. And for others, focusing on the altruistic nature of surrogacy.
Yeah.
That incredible gift they've given can be a really powerful source of strength.
Right.
Remembering why they chose this path can really help them navigate those complex emotions.
It's a reminder that their journey, while emotionally challenging, has ultimately brought immense joy to another family.
Exactly.
But even with that, I imagine returning to their own family and routine after such an intense experience.
Yeah. It's be a big adjustment.
It is. It's a period of reintegration.
Right.
Requiring a shift back to those previous roles and responsibilities. So the doula can, offer practical help during that time, maybe with childcare or household tasks, but also, emotional support as they navigate this transition.
So it's about helping them readjust to life.
Exactly.
After surrogacy, both practically and emotionally. Okay.
And in some cases, professional counseling might be beneficial during this time.
Right.
And the doula can help connect a surrogate
with
a therapist who specializes in, surrogacy or postpartum mental health.
So it sounds like their support extends far beyond just the immediate postpartum.
Absolutely. They're there for the long haul, helping them process this whole experience.
Okay, so beyond the emotional and the practical aspects, there's another layer to the doula's role, and that's navigating
kind of these social complexities.
Okay, social complexities of surrogacy.
Yeah.
Okay, let's explore that further.
Yeah, let's dive into that.
It sounds like there's a lot to unpack there.
Right.
Okay, so we've covered the emotional and the practical support that surrogate doulas provide.
Right.
What did these social complexities you mentioned involve? Well, it really can be tricky because you have to remember that surrogacy involves, kind of a delicate dance between several different individuals, all with their own emotions and needs and expectations.
Sure.
And the doula really plays a vital role in navigating those relationships.
So who are we talking about here? Well, obviously the surrogate and the intended parents.
Yeah, those are the key players.
Yeah.
And
is there anybody else?
Not really. I mean, it's really, the focus is always on supporting the surrogate.
Right.
But the doula also recognizes, the intended parents' excitement and anxieties as well.
Right, because they're about to welcome a child that they've often, longed for.
Yeah, and it comes with its own set of emotions.
Right, it's like everybody's on this incredible journey together, but it's also like uncharted territory. And there's potential pitfalls if communication breaks down.
Exactly, and that's where the doula can really step in.
Okay.
They often act as kind of a bridge between the surrogate and the intended parents.
Yeah.
Facilitating clear and open communication before and after the birth.
So they're really laying the groundwork for like a healthy and respectful relationship, making sure that everybody is kind of on the same page.
Exactly. They can help establish boundaries.
Yeah. Okay.
Discuss expectations around communication and involvement after the baby is born.
Right.
Even address those potentially sensitive topics that might be difficult to discuss directly between, the surrogate and the intended parents.
It makes me think of those like prenuptial agreements that couples sometimes sign before getting married. It's not about expecting things to go wrong, but it's about having those tough conversations up front.
Exactly.
To prevent,
misunderstandings.
Yeah, it's all about that proactive communication. Setting the stage for a really positive and supportive dynamic between everyone involved.
Okay, so.
And the doula, with their training and experience, can really guide those conversations in a way that feels safe and comfortable for all parties.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But what about those situations where things don't go as planned?
Yeah.
I'm thinking specifically about like the heartbreaking possibility of a miscarriage or a stillbirth.
Yeah.
I mean, how does a doula support everybody?
That's when their role becomes even more crucial.
Right.
It's a time of immense grief.
Of course.
For everyone involved.
Yeah.
And, the doula is there to provide that unwavering support to the surrogate.
Right.
While also, acknowledging the intended parent's devastation.
I can't imagine how difficult that would be. It's so hard because you're dealing with the loss of a baby, but you're also navigating, these complexities of this surrogate relationship, and so the doula can help facilitate communication during that incredibly sensitive time, create a space for kind of shared grief and understanding.
Yeah.
They can also guide the surrogate through, the physical and emotional aspects of postpartum recovery.
Right, because even in
the absence,
the baby wasn't born alive,
the living child,
the surrogate's body still went through the pregnancy.
Exactly. And so she deserves,
right.
That same level of care and compassion.
Absolutely.
Including support for her mental and emotional well-being.
And the doula might suggest ways to like honor the baby's memory, like creating a memorial or a ritual.
Exactly.
That would kind of bring a sense of closure.
It's really about finding those meaningful ways to acknowledge the loss and move through that grieving process.
And the doula support extends beyond just those
absolutely
immediate needs.
Yeah.
They can also connect the surrogate and the intended parents with, additional resources like grief counseling.
Yeah, support groups, legal or financial advisors.
Right. Yeah.
Depending on the situation.
It's really like a holistic approach addressing all these
it's really
faceted needs.
Looking at the whole picture and recognizing that everybody has different needs.
We often hear about doulas supporting birthing mothers, but I had no idea that the role of a surrogate doula was so vital and so multifaceted.
It's a really specialized field that requires a unique set of skills and a deep understanding of, the emotional, physical, social complexities of surrogacy.
Yeah.
They really are, I think, the unsung heroes of this incredible journey.
Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground today.
Exploring these incredible ways that surrogate doulas support these amazing women who choose to carry a baby for someone else. I mean, it's a testament to the power of, human connection and this unwavering commitment to building families, no matter what path is taken. I hope our listeners now have a much deeper appreciation for the invaluable role
I think so.
that surrogate doulas play in this extraordinary process.
I think they do make a world of difference, ensuring that surrogacy is a positive and empowering experience for everybody involved.
Well, thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
Oh, thanks for having me.